SJC-13154, Springfield City Council, v. Dominic Sarno, in his capacity as the mayor of the city of Springfield.
Okay, Attorney Angelini.
Good morning, Your Honors. My name is Michael Angelini. I represent Dominic Sarno, the mayor of the city of Springfield. This is a matter before the court on a de novo review of cross motions for summary judgment. There are no facts at issue. This is a matter of statutory interpretation. In 1962, the citizens of the city of Springfield enacted a Plan A form of government. As Your Honors know, there are various forms of municipal government provided for in the statutes. Which form is determined is a matter of election of the citizens of a town or a city. And in this case, the citizens elected to be governed by certain sections of Chapter 43, which describe a Plan A form of government, otherwise known colloquially as a strong mayor form of government. There are, according to Chapter 43, Section 46, a number of 9 actual statutes which control the governance of municipal government dictated by strong mayor Plan A. Those are, in summary, what control, in our view, your conclusion in this case. Let me just briefly review them. Chapter 43, Section 48 provides that the mayor of the city is the chief executive officer of the city. Section 50 provides that the city council of the city has legislative authority. Section 52 provides specifically that the mayor is the appointing authority and appoints all heads of departments. Section 53 provides that the mayor's right to appoint heads of departments is unchecked. It is simply accomplished by filing a certificate of appointment, certifying that in his judgment, his appointees are qualified to serve. And Section 54 says that the mayor, and the mayor alone, can remove at will any person so appointed. Those are the provisions under Plan A which control what is at issue here in this case. And what's at issue in this case is the efficacy and legality of an ordinance passed by the City Council of the City of Springfield, which has fiscal responsibility. And that ordinance provides...
Mr. Angelini, in your view, what does the word reorganize mean?
Well, it means to take something and change it.
Okay.
And I'll come to that in a minute.
Well, why don't you answer my question first?
Well, because I didn't mean to escape your question. I'm sorry. It means to take something that is organized in a particular way and organize it in a different way. That's how I interpret the word reorganize.
Okay, so then what do we do with General Laws, Chapter 43, Section 5?
I think you look at it in its totality. If you look at it in its totality, you will see that it is not one of the sections which is specifically related to a Plan A form of government. It is Section 5. The sections which relate to the operation of Plan A are sections 46 through 55, as the statute says. And if you look at Section 5, which is a general provision, not specific to Plan A, it says 2 things which are significant.
So
it says,
so 43 Section 5 does not govern Plan A?
It does with limitations. Okay. And the limitations are expressed in Section 5. It says in the first line, until superseded under this chapter. And the provisions which I have just read to you supersede, with respect to the power of appointment, anything in Section 5, by the very terms of Section 5. It further says in Section 5 that it is only effective if it is consistent with the general laws. And I argue to you, suggest to you, that it is not. So by its own terms, to the extent it is a general law, but to the extent that it is contradicted by specific statutes which control Plan A form of government, I suggest to you respectfully, it has no impact.
And how is it inconsistent with the general laws?
Because it is inconsistent because the sections which I have read to you, which apply to Plan A form of government, say that the mayor has the power of determining who are the heads of department.
Okay, so.
And if the reorganizational
If the
language,
legislative body says, rather than having one head of this police department, you're gonna have 5, and Mr. Mayor, you get to appoint them. Is that consistent with the law?
I think not, because by implication, it tells the mayor that he cannot do what he wants to do in appointing someone as head of the department. I think it's sophistry, frankly. It's a suggestion which, I understand the suggestion, it's the only way that, well, I won't say more about that. I understand what's been
You're gonna say
suggested.
it's the only way they win, but go on.
I was going to say that.
Right.
But he gets to appoint all 5 of them. He gets to appoint all 5. They've reorganized it to make 5 heads, but he gets to pick all 5 heads. They
Sure.
don't- And he gets to fire all 5 heads. too.
Sure.
And all your other points, I'm just looking through he gets to appoint them, he gets to.
Certify them, remove them.
He gets to do everything, he just doesn't get to decide how the department is structured, which seems to be a classic legislative act. So I'm confused by why there's an inconsistency.
Because he does not get to decide who he wants to appoint. The ordinance says he must appoint 5 people who are unpaid.
So he gets to pick 5, he gets to.
He gets to say he appoints 5 people who don't get paid. That's an infringement on the power to appoint. It's not in the provisions which apply to plant. We have different forms of government, as your honor knows, in Massachusetts.
Let's take it one step further.
Yes.
The city council says, you know what? Some of the functions of the police department should be transferred to the mental health department. They do that as a matter of policy. Whether that's a smart policy decision or not, that's their call.
I think they can do that.
And they're gonna, and as part of that transfer, we're gonna, create 2 new heads over here, and we're gonna, do something over in the police department. They can do that, right?
They can do a lot of things, but what they cannot do is to infringe, impact, minimize, dilute the mayor's power as chief executive to determine who is going to be the head of the Springfield Police Department.
Then what do we do with established new departments in Section 5?
They can establish new departments.
That's what happened.
They can establish a new department, but they cannot determine who the head is of that department and cannot constrain the mayor in any way with respect to it. They could create a department of judicial economy. I don't know. They can create any department they want. That's their right. They're legislators. They can legislate things. But
Right,
what?
then they still can, and you're right, the mayor can still appoint under Section 52.
But they cannot tell the mayor that he must appoint certain people, or people with certain characteristics, or certain people without pay. Or they cannot tell the people, look, by their argument, they could appoint 100 people to head the Springfield Police Department. One point I want to make to you is a statute which we have not talked about, and it's Section 10, Chapter 41, Section 1080. That statute, which is not contravened by anything in Plan A statutes, says the mayor has the exclusive authority to contract with whomever he appoints to be the head of the department. Now, the foolishness of what's being proposed, the sophistry of it all, is that conceivably the mayor could contract with these 100 people that they name to a board, or 5 or 10 or 20, how many they decide. And the mayor could say in terms with that contract, look, I want 99 of you to follow the dictates of Joe Blow, the remaining one of you. And unless you do that, I'm going to fire you, as he can. And they acknowledge he can. The power to contract is implicitly a reflection of the power of the mayor. And if you take what they say, if the mayor did what they say he has to do, he could make such a contract with those 5, which reflects the foolishness of the argument.
There are limitations on contracts, too. Contracts against public policy don't get enforced. I mean, he couldn't enter into a contract for 100 years, right? He hires his son to be the police chief and enters into a contract for 100 years.
And he could not discriminate in hiring and could not do things like that.
Can I ask you another question, Mr. Angelini? I don't know if Justice Kafka's done.
No, I'm done.
Thank you. Does the 2004 Finance Control Board legislation mean anything? Because it's the reverse of this, but because it's a separate legislative act, we
Yeah,
pay no
it's-
mind of it?
It's completely irrelevant to what's before us.
Okay,
Your Honor.
because it's a separate legislative act.
Completely irrelevant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It plays an historical part in how we get to where we are, but
Right.
I believe it's irrelevant to what you need to do.
All right.
So that's where we have it. Now, the question is, if you accept what I say with respect to what are the statutes which control Plan A form of government,
Well, I don't accept it, and I'm also confused by it. But Justice Lowy's question, I take it the city council could abolish the police department, right? If they wanted to. I'm not saying, again, not saying it's a good
could
idea.
abolish the police department.
They could abolish the police
Yes.
department and transfer all the different positions to different departments.
They could
right?
do that.
The different functions.
They could do that.
So if they can do that, why can't they create a police department with 5 commissioners as opposed to 1 commissioner?
Because the statute says that the power of appointment lies with the police chief, lies with the mayor. The power to contract and appoint the responsibilities of that person lies exclusively with the mayor. And that is a characteristic of Plan A government, which the citizens of the city of Springfield have enacted. That's why.
But if Chapter 41, Section 1080,
Yes.
if that right to contract is enough to take away the power of the council to establish new departments, then all that has to happen, as happened in this case, is we've got a new department, and then the mayor contracts with a police commissioner after the legislation passes.
Yeah, I'm not arguing before you the efficacy of the current contract with the police commissioner. What I am suggesting to you is that whenever he wants to do so, before or after this ordinance, without regard to this ordinance, the power to contract belongs solely to the mayor. And he can, by that contract, in effect, determine how that police department is run. That's his power. The legislature gave him that power. I suggest to think about it this way. If you decide to pay any attention, which I suggest respectfully you should not, to Section 5, that is the general statute which applies not specifically to Plan A government, and which has been, I suggest to you, superseded and is therefore also inconsistent with general laws. If you give that any attention at all, and if you give attention to the specific statutes which govern the responsibilities of the mayor under Plan A, then the question is, I think, how does this court harmonize that legislation? How do you harmonize it in a way to effect the mandate of the legislature in passing these statutes? And I think there's a way to do that. And the way to do it, which I recommend to you and seems to me would be sensible in that circumstance if you decide to pay any attention to Section 5, is to limit the reorganizational power of the city council to matters which do not affect in any way the mayor's power of appointment. It seems to me that is consistent with Plan A governance, is consistent with the mayor's responsibility, as a chief executive, and it reflects the legislative responsibility of the city council, but it does not specifically look at the mayor's power of appointment and punch it in the nose. Seems to me harmonizing the statute, if you go to the point of giving any regard whatsoever to Section 5, is where that should lead this court. But I suggest to you respectfully that you must pay attention to that provision of Section 5 that says it has no meaning if it is superseded by specific language with respect to specific plans, and there is that with respect to Plan A, the city of Springfield, and the mayor's right to appoint. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
In the
much.
absence of any questions, I have no further comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Lesser.
May it please the court, my name is Tom Lesser, and along with my partner Michael Alio, who's seated at council table with me, we represent the Springfield City Council. Now, we've always thought of this case as extremely straightforward. We have a Springfield City Charter. We have a Section 5. It adopted the identical language from General Laws, Chapter 43, Section 5, and it gave the city council the right, by ordinance, to reorganize, consolidate, or even abolish a department. Or, second, the city council adopted an ordinance in 2018 that reorganized the police department. And as part of that reorganization, replaced the single police commissioner, who was then head of the department, with a 5-member board of commissioners. And all 5 members are appointed by the mayor.
What do you say to the argument that the ordinance has to be consistent with the general laws? And as Mr. Angelini points out, there's about 5 statutes in the strong mayor provision that give the mayor the authority to appoint singularly.
He still has the ability to appoint the 5-member board. He has the ability to revoke their membership on the board if he's dissatisfied with their membership on the board. He has ultimate power to determine those 5 people, who serves on that board. And so there is no conflict. And Attorney Angelini admitted Section 5 is still in effect. And this wasn't some radical idea. I mean, this had been what the city of Springfield had done for 100 years. They did it for 100 years, and then we had a municipal control board. And the municipal control board had the ability to adopt new ordinances. And the municipal control board in 2004 adopted an ordinance replacing that 5-member board of police commissioners with a single member. So basically, the city council went back to what had been done for 100 years without argument, without dispute, without question.
Those 5-member board, those members, were they paid back under the old statute and ordinance?
They were not, Judge, to the best of my knowledge. Now, that we did, the original ordinance that was passed set up certain characteristics of the 5 members, and that was struck by the trial court. And that was not appealed by us.
Were the 5 members paid? Do you know if they received a salary?
Paid in the past?
Yes.
To the best of my knowledge, they were not, but there's nothing in the record indicating one way or another. And this idea of unpaid was not argued before the trial court. It was not argued in Superior Court. This is the first I've heard of the word unpaid as being a significant part of this case. What was argued before the trial court was they had to be residents of Springfield, they couldn't be employed by the city, and 1 or 2 other things.
Can I ask
And
you to
that was struck by the court. The court said you
Can I
can't
ask
do
you to
that.
address counsel's argument that Section 5 has been superseded or is inconsistent with the general laws of a Plan A form of government?
Well, it's, the Plan A form of government simply says the mayor has the power of appointment and has the power of revocation. It doesn't say that the mayor has the power to determine the form of governments, which is a pure legislative act. There's nothing in what Attorney Angelini talked about which is inconsistent with Section 5, which gives the city council the right to reorganize, to abolish, and it's what's always been perplexing to me in this case.
Just to take Attorney Angelini's hypothetical, what if the city council said, okay, now it's 100 police commissioners that, in a board?
The city council,
Your position is that would be perfectly fine?
that
under
would be,
Section
if
5?
the city council chose in its infinite ignorance to do that, then it would have the right to do that. It would have the right to have 1 person, 7 people, 20 people, as the trial court talked about. That would be.
What if the mayor decided to do as Attorney Angelini suggested? One person is to be the person in charge, and the other 4 have to listen to the one person.
Well, that's not legislatively how it was set up. It was set up as a 5-person board.
Understood, but if the contract that the mayor enters into says, here's your job is to listen to Mr. X,
Are you talking about 1080 at this point in time?
I'm not sure. I know that Mr. Angelini said if the mayor has the power to contract with the individuals, right?
The mayor has the power to select individuals
Select
to
and
serve on the
contract
Board
with.
of Police Commissioners.
Right. And enter into contracts with those 5 individuals, correct?
No, I think he was talking about a contract with the police chief itself.
Okay, so
I
the
think
mayor
we-
does not have the ability to pick and enter into contracts with the,
He has the ability to pick those people to serve on the board.
okay, but not to,
Well, and set the terms of the contract, right?
I'm sorry?
And set the terms of the contract, including a term that might say, hey, you four, since you're not being paid anyway, you just do whatever this guy says.
I don't think he has the power to.
What would prevent the mayor from doing that?
I'm sorry?
What would prevent the mayor, in your estimation, from doing just that?
Section 5, which gives the city council the right to determine how to reorganize a department.
Which
and
one
how to
wins?
structure a department.
Which one wins, the power to contract or this power under Section 5?
It's the power of governance that the city council has.
Is
The
it
word organize means to set up an administrative structure. That's the power of the city council.
And as we stretch this out to bad decision-making, this is in the hands of the voters, right, ultimately,
Yes.
right? So if the mayor does something crazy or the city council does something crazy, they're not there for the next term, right?
Correct. Correct, but organize means to set up an administrative structure, that's the dictionary definition of
There's
it.
some limits on your powers, right? There's that case in which the city council tried to decide who worked on the mayor's staff, right? They couldn't, for example, say, you can pick 5 police commissioners as long as they're all city council members, right?
Correct, correct.
They could not do that.
Right, and just as the characteristics of the city council in the ordinance they adopted were thrown out by the trial court.
Right, so
Said
the
they
limits.
couldn't do that.
You can't, Mr. Angelini's right that there's some strong mayor component to this that can't be intruded upon. Where that line is, it's kind of hard to figure, given the way this is done, but
It's
there are limits, right?
It's essentially they can't limit they can select a number of people who serve as a board who have certain powers over a department, but the mayor has absolute right as a strong mayor to pick whoever he wants.
Right,
And
but
I think the argument over here, I think the argument, though, that we're hearing is that we've got a Part A form of government here, and we've got the mayor with the appointment power for the heads of departments under Section 52, and that the mayor can't really do that when the choice is 5 non-paid members of this commission. And you say, where's this argument come from? It's sort of a little bit of the dicta in the Superior Court judge's opinion, I think, which has a little bit of a good luck being able to fill the positions tone to it. So I guess take his argument, which I think is probably the strongest one, which is that Section 52 has no meaning. You can't perform that function based on what we have here with the non-paid 5 members.
Well, again, Judge, this is the first time this issue of pay has come up. It wasn't addressed in Superior Court. It wasn't challenged in Superior Court as improper. The fact of the matter is we're talking about a huge hypothetical here. Maybe you can find 5 people very easily, the mayor, who are friends of the mayor, who would love to serve as police commissioners under those situations. In response to the case that you cited, Judge, that case involved the employees in a law department.
right, no, I get it. I mean,
And the SJC was really clear that we'd have a different situation where we're talking about a municipal department with the power to reorganize or abolish.
well, I mean, I think at some point, his ability to be the chief executive becomes jeopardized, right? I'm not sure if a 5-person committee gets anywhere close to that, but if there were, if you required 100 people to be in charge of the police department, that may be improper, because he can't execute the laws with 100 people, you know, whether, right? There are limits here. He's the chief executive officer of the city. He's responsible for executing, you know, the policy decisions of the city council, right?
Well, the police chief is responsible under the statute for overseeing the police department.
But there is no police chief. In your view,
Or-
there's no
or-
police
No,
chief.
I'm saying that there's no, I'm saying that there's, the governance structure is a 5-person board of police commissioners.
Right.
That's not to say that board may not, in fact, have a police chief, have a deputy police chief, have all sorts of other people under him. I'm not saying that we're not going to have a police chief.
Right.
I'm just saying that that 5-person board is the governing structure that has to decide that. There is one thing I'd like to address, which is this statute, Chapter 41, Section 108O, which Attorney Angelini talked about. And this is a statute which has to do, number one, with employment contracts. It has nothing to do with the governance of the department itself. And number two, and this is a mistake of ours in our brief, the mayor made the argument that he has the right under the statute to enter into that contract, any such contract. And I think if you read the words of the statute, he is incorrect in that. And we did not correct that in our appellate brief. The statute states any city or town acting through its appointing authority. And in this case, the appointing authority with regard to the police chief is the 5-person board of commissioners. It's not the mayor. Of course, the court went on to say that since the 2008 ordinance became effective 9 months before the contract with the commissioner, it could not have been validly executed. And he knew that it couldn't be validly executed, and the ordinance itself said that it would go into effect. And
I'm getting confused. The appointing authority for the police commissioner, now to be the 5 police commissioner, is of course the mayor, correct?
correct.
Now and that's what Mr. Angelini argued. Now you're saying, well, the appointing authority for the police chief is the.
I think that's a fair reading of the statute.
Is the commission.
I think that's a fair reading of the statute.
I don't know if you're characterizing his argument properly, but you can continue.
And we hadn't raised that before, so I wanted to point out to the court that I think a fair reading of the words appointing authority in that statute.
I think we're clear on the who gets to appoint who.
Okay. So just in summary, I think we have a statute which talks about reorganization. We have a definition of reorganization. It's to change an administrative structure. We have a city council that did exactly that by passing an ordinance. And we have a situation where the mayor thinks that he has the ultimate power to decide what happens in the city of Springfield. And it really is a question of the separation of powers from the city council's point of view. The city council has certain powers under the statute. And my brother talked about the administrative powers, the legislative powers of the city of Springfield, of the city council, and they exercise those powers. And I just don't think there's any real question that they acted within their authority when they did that. And there's nothing that suggested that they acted improperly. So thank you for your time, unless anyone has any additional questions.
Thank you very much, counsel.